Hello, so this is the second part of my series of videos on the pelvic floor muscles, and in this one we're going to explore some different exercises for them. So the exercises we're going to explore, I'm going to first of all show you some sitting. So you can be sat on the floor like me, you could be sat on a chair, you could be sat on a ball. Just get yourself comfortable because we're going to do some work with the breath first and engaging the pelvic floor with the breath. And then when we've done those, I'm going to go through some other positions that you could do pelvic floor exercises in. Because who can do pelvic floor exercises and what kind of precautions might you need to take? Basically anybody can do them. Even if you have more severe issues like you've got prolapse. But of course you need to be a lot more careful what exercises and what positions that you're doing them in. And if you have got if you've got a prolapse issue, it is probably best to work with a health professional. If you've just had children, as I said in the previous video, often they can be weakened through pregnancy. So in fact, actually, during pregnancy, it's also helpful to do pelvic floor exercises, but you need to find out which positions are good for them, and some of the breathing may feel more appropriate. After birth, it's also good to start exercising them actually as soon as possible, but very, very gently. If you're overweight and have issues or whatever is going on for you, it's also really important that you find comfortable positions. I talked in the last video that some people may have tighter muscles, some people may have weaker muscles. So the positions that we're going to work in will help you find out what works best for you. So basically, who can do them? Anybody, but you need to really pay attention to what's going on in your body to work out which positions are going to be the most suitable for you. So having said that, we're going to start. First of all, the most important for whatever you're doing is just to be aware of them and to connect with them through your breath. So remember from the last video that we hold the pubic bone and we hold our coccyx, and it might be helpful to close your eyes and just take a few breaths so you can breathe quite deeply. So breathe out as deeply as you can, and when you breathe out, that's when hopefully you feel your pelvic floor contracting. And as you breathe in, hopefully you can feel your pelvic floor relaxing. It may be quite subtle. So this kind of awareness is actually the kind of exercise that anybody can do, whatever's going on with you, whatever stage of life you're at, whether you have problems or not with your pelvic floor. It's really about working them when we breathe and breathing more fully. So this is the most fundamental part, and anybody can do it. If it feels too strong sitting up, you can do it lying down, and I'll explain that later. As you breathe out, you may feel this slight contraction. You may feel your pubic bone or your coccyx moving. As you breathe in, you might feel that lengthening, and that aspect is important too. So the other way also to get to know them before doing the exercises in different positions and before doing any more complicated ones is actually just to touch them directly. So as you're doing your breathing, as you breathe out, you might feel your clitoris or your penis moving slightly. And then as you breathe in, a relaxation. You can actually also touch directly and even massage them. And even, obviously make sure you have clean hands, put a finger inside. So for men and for women, you can put a finger inside your anus and see if you can feel the tightening as you breathe out and the relaxation as you breathe in. That's a very tangible way of feeling. And for women, you could do that inside your vagina. If you have a prolapse, that probably won't be so comfortable, but put your finger inside and see if you can feel that tightening and releasing. The other way, you can just check, but it's very important you don't do this as the actual exercise, is a way to see for the urethra, how the muscles are around the urethra, is of course when you stop and start your urine flow. But only ever do this just to get a sensation of the feeling. Never do it on a full bladder, and do it midstream. So as you're urinating, just see if you can stop the urine flow and then release. So occasionally you can do that, but it's not the exercise. These are just ways of getting to know what's going on so that when we do the exercises, you've got more of a feel. Another thing that's become quite popular these days is for women to, this is just for women, to use a jade egg. So you can just massage your pelvis, your perineum with oil, perhaps coconut oil is quite a nice one. But you could also take a jade egg. There's loads of websites to source jade eggs. You want to use the broader part of the egg in contact with your pelvic floor, and you can just rub the egg along your perineum, warming it up. And then if you want to, you could actually try to put the egg inside, but it's really important that you don't push it. You allow your body to take it in. And it can be a really lovely way of just connecting. Jade eggs doesn't have to be jade, it's a crystal, but just connecting with yourself in a healing way. And some women like doing it and some women don't. So that's another idea that you can use. So now we're going to go into some slightly more complex ones. So the important thing is now, all the ones we're going to do now, don't repeat them too many times, because the pelvic floor, yes, they do go deep, as I said in the other video, but they also tire quite easily. So when we're doing the stronger exercises, don't do too many repetitions. It's often recommended to not work them for more than a couple of minutes at a time, but to do them throughout the day. So often I suggest to people, perhaps every time you open the fridge door, or if you're stuck at a red traffic light, or when you're waiting for the kettle to boil, all sorts of ideas like that. Just do a few of the more strong pelvic floor exercises. A minute or two is often enough, but small amounts and regularly spread throughout the day is better. So now as we're doing this video and you're experimenting in different positions, we're not going to do too many in any one position because I don't want your muscles to tire. And if you're finding that it's getting too much, really just go back to that basic out and in breath, feeling the tightening and releasing, and that's all. So the first one we're going to do, I often find it does help to close my eyes to do it, but we're going to basically do a nice long out breath and see if you can really lengthen the out breath and go as high as you feel you can inside. And as you reach the end of the out breath, you might be able to hold the out breath and hold the muscles drawn up. And then as you breathe in, really see if you can feel that relaxation of the muscles. It's really important to have that relaxation on the in-breath. So this is basically seeing if you can tighten a little bit more on the out-breath than just through normal breathing. Maybe hold a bit. And then on the in-breath, seeing if you can relax them a little bit more than you would on an in-breath. And you can repeat this, focusing either on all of the pelvic floor at the same time, or you might find it easier to either focus more around your penis or your clitoris or your vagina, or more around your anus. So it's the same idea. You're breathing out and you feel more of a tightening around your penis or your clitoris. You're breathing in and you relax. Or you're breathing out, you feel more of a tightening around your anus. And then you're breathing in, you feel the relaxation. Now we're going to try, so this is that's working what we call the slow twitch fibers, which are about endurance and how we hold the pelvic floor, give support to the pelvic floor. But there's also fibers that need to respond quite quickly, like when we're stopping and starting urine, also in ejaculation or orgasm, and these are fast twitch fibers. So we want to do the same exercise, but on the out breath, rather than just drawing up and holding, we're going to try and pulse. So this time, you might find it helpful to breathe in, deeply relax the muscles, and then on the out breath, just try to tighten and release and tighten and release and tighten and release in a pulsing way. And then on the in breath, fully relax the muscles. That's quite important. So again, we're not going to do too many of them now, but just I'll re-explain that. Tightening and releasing the fast twitch fibers. But as I said, the muscles can quite easily go into spasm. So if you feel that you're not able to control that, then don't do that. I want to add a breath that I find is quite helpful to do. It's a breath from yoga practices, and it actually works. It can be another way that you can stimulate your pelvic floor. It's called the Kapalabhati or the bellows breath, and you breathe out quickly, but you draw up the pelvic floor while you're breathing out. So bellows breath. It also is preparation for when we're going to connect more with the energetic levels of the pelvic floor and connect them up to the brain and also in our visualization. So the bellows breath, you focus on your nose and it's like a bellows. So you breathe out through your nose, and as you breathe out, you draw your abdominal muscles in. So you might not be able to do that for very long. You don't really focus on the in breath on this one. It's more on the out breath, because it's working the fast twitch fibers in a way, the out breath. So see if you can draw up the pelvic floor muscles as you do this bellows breath. It's really important at the end of the in-breath to relax the muscle. It's also really important not to force that breathing. And if you're pregnant, actually, it's a bit too strong. So don't do it when you're pregnant. Don't do it if you have any issues. Don't do it immediately in the early postnatal period. But in the previous video, I did talk about the connection between the abdominal muscles and the pelvic floor. And when we're working our abdominal muscles, we want to also be working the pelvic floor. But when we're working the pelvic floor, it's also quite good if we're engaging our abdominal muscles. One thing I've realised I also need to say, but we'll explore that more in the different positions. Sometimes people are tightening their inner thigh muscles when they're doing the exercises. So that's what we'll explore in the position. So, I mean, I'm sitting in this position where my inner thigh are quite relaxed, but if you're sitting in a chair, just make sure you're not engaging your inner thigh muscles. So this might be enough for you in terms of the breath, but I'm just going to try a slightly more engaging breath, and this is known as the lift, because we're going to have a longer out breath, and we're going to see if rather than just draw up all in one go, we can go up gradually. So this is about having more control of the pelvic floor muscles. So if your muscles are very weak or very tight, it may be too much for you to do, but it just gives you an idea. You could just visualize it as well if you find it's too strong to do. So with this one, as you breathe out and contract the muscles, imagine that you're going up inside a lift. So you're gradually going up to the first floor, you're going higher to the second floor, you're going higher to the third floor, you're going higher to the fourth floor, or maybe that's high enough. If you can, you might go even higher, and you stay at the top. And if you can hold the out breath out, stay. When you need to breathe in, see if you can go gradually back down. So don't just suddenly let it all go in one go. You're going to gradually go back down to the fourth, or wherever you are, to the third, to the second, to the first, to the ground floor, and then see if you can go down to the basement. That's quite important, to see if you can really relax the muscle. This is quite a strong one. You probably only want to do that one once. But again, it's endurance, going slowly up and holding, and then going slowly down, making sure you're doing it on the correct breathing. It's often called the lift or the elevator. Actually, I didn't say, a lot of these exercises of tightening and releasing are known as Kegels, because Professor Kegel in the University of California realized that many women were having surgery for pelvic floor weakness when actually exercise could correct them. Now, one that I like, that I've developed a lot through Chinese medicine and breathing and Qigong and the microcosmic orbit, which will be our visualization in a separate video, but I want to introduce this idea now, is that you put your tongue on the roof of your mouth and you bring your awareness actually up to your brain. So of course the muscles don't actually go up that high, but in terms of fascial connections, in terms of nervous system connections, there are a lot of connections between our brain and our pelvis. We talked about sexual connections. Well, the nervous system and hormones. It's well known during birth that if you relax your throat, you can relax your cervix. If our jaw's tight, this may be an indication that our pelvis is tight, so our pelvic floor muscles are tight. So there are both physical and energetic connections with our head, and that's the part I want to now bring in as another exercise. So with this one, you start with your tongue on the roof of your mouth, and you do a bit like the elevator one, but you're going up. Once you get to your highest floor physically, see if you can lift all the way up into your roof of your mouth. Breathing is always the same in all of these exercises. So as you breathe out, focus on your pelvic floor, either around your vagina or your anus, or both, or your penis, and then slowly going up inside the floors, first through the physical floors, Next, see if you can lift all the way through your heart, up into your mouth and into the roof of your mouth. And then as you need to breathe in, relax your jaw, your tongue, and move down through your body to your heart and down to your pelvic floor, and really going to the basement. So the basement could be the surface on which you're sitting or lying, and really connecting with the earth. So you can also do that with the bellows breath, which we just did with the, but you're doing it by having your fingers on your nostrils, which brings that awareness into your brain and your head. So it's like alternate nostril breathing in yoga, but you're doing it quickly. So the first one you could be breathing through your, in and out through your left nostril, starting, breathe in through your left and then you release. And then after a while you can breathe in through your right and then release. So I'll just do that. So if I'm just doing it with the breath, it's breathing in through the left and out through the right. And then after a while you can do it the other way. Breathing in through the right and out through the left. So and at the end, a deep breath to relax the pelvic floor muscles. So you can repeat that. It's quite a powerful advanced exercise, so that's why I've shown it right at the end. So in terms of exercising your pelvic floor, the most fundamental is working with your breath. So I just want to make sure that we're doing this all correctly. You can to really focus on your breath, put a hand on your chest over your lungs and a hand on your abdomen, because you want to have, as you breathe in, it's not your shoulders that are going up. Try and keep your body relaxed and still, and then as you breathe in, feel it in your chest, your lungs expanding, the space, the length between your hands increasing, but your shoulders stay relaxed. And then as you breathe out, you can really feel your abdomen drawing in and your pelvic floor drawing up. So that means when you're breathing in, you feel your hand on your abdomen as well as in your chest coming out. So it's all happening along the midline between your lungs and your abdomen and your pelvic floor. Your shoulders and your arms, your legs, the rest of your body needs to be relaxed. So we're going to start sitting. Sitting is a fairly neutral position because we're supported by, our pelvic floor supported by the earth. Sitting is quite a good position as well, because if we can do it sitting on a chair if you want to. But sitting on a chair, you might use other muscles like your buttocks muscles or your inner thigh muscles. If you sit on a floor and you're comfortable, you can put the soles of your feet together, and that way you're relaxing your inner thigh. You can't really tighten your buttock muscles so much. And so then you could do all the pelvic floor exercises, or whichever ones you're going to do, in this sitting position, and it can really help you to isolate the muscles. So another position I know you probably know from some of my previous videos, I love doing exercises or showing people exercises on the ball. And the ball is a really good way, if your pelvic floor muscles aren't so strong, they're getting support from the ball. So you could just sit on the ball rather than sitting on the floor or sitting on a chair and do your exercises. But also you can massage your pelvic floor by sitting on the ball. It gets a nice massage as you roll forwards and backwards and going, well, you can do, I'm actually circling, aren't I? So I was circling, but you could also go forwards and backwards. And as you breathe, you can be engaging your pelvic floor. On the out breath, drawing them up. And on the in breath, really feel that relaxation and even massaging them a little bit with the ball. So this is a great position for most people, in fact, can probably do pelvic floor sitting on the ball, and it's a good way of opening up your hips and your glute muscles rather than doing it sitting on a chair. So another position for doing pelvic floor in is lying down. This is a very neutral position for the pelvic floor because of course they're not having to hold you up. So if you have weak pelvic floor, lying down is quite a good exercise position to exercise, all the ones that we did. Lying down, you may just want to check, you can explore just gently tilting your pelvis so that you lengthen your lower back and you feel the pelvic floor engaging through that. So it's a very gentle movement, just slightly on the out breath, engaging your pelvic floor at the same time as you lengthen your lower back into the ground. Not forcing it, it's just really with the breath. And then on the in breath, just relax the pelvic floor, and you should probably feel your lower back relaxing a bit as well, so that you're able to get your hand in the space. So it's really just with the out breath, being aware of how the lower back is involved, and the abdominal muscles and the pelvic floor. And this is better to have your feet like I have got them, rather than extended, because when they're fully extended, it puts a bit more strain on the lower back. If you're pregnant, of course, lying on your back isn't so comfortable, but lying on your side could be comfortable. So lying on your side, you could also do that tilting of the lower back. Now, if you remember, I said that the muscles could be tighter on one side than the other in your pelvic floor. So it's really important that you do some lying on one side and then you do some lying on the other side, because otherwise you're not working the muscles fully. So again, I'll just stay with the simple ones. As you breathe out, draw the muscles in, feel your lower back lengthening slightly, and then as you breathe in, feel relaxation. And lying on your back, you could also come from lying on your back to an inverted position, which takes away the pressure. So as you breathe out, lift up your lower back and come into the bridge position. And you can try doing some pelvic floor in this bridge position where you don't have pressure on the muscles. So another position to work them in is all fours. All fours is really great, especially for heavily pregnant women. So you can be in all fours. Especially if you're pregnant, start with a flat back. And then you can just do all the movements in this position. Or, as you breathe out, you could slightly round your lower back, drawing in the abdominal and the pelvic floor with the out breath. And then as you breathe in, either coming to flat if that's more comfortable, or just gently hollowing your lower back relaxing your throat. This can be a good one to connect with your throat. But if you're heavily pregnant, that's probably too much strain on the lower back. So it's really isolating the pelvic floor, but using that natural movement that happens with the breath that affects the lower back and the abdominal muscles. On all fours, you could also just do it to one side, coming to one side and focusing on the pelvic floor. If it's tighter on one side than the other, coming to the centre and then going to the other side. So in all fours, the benefit of all fours is that the muscles are quite relaxed. They're not having to support you, and you've taken the weight off them. So you may find it harder to feel them. This is also what I'm getting you to explore in these different positions. How do the exercises feel different in the different positions? So if you have very weak pelvic floor, and again, it's quite a good one if you're pregnant, you can even drop your forearms so that you're taking even more pressure off your pelvic floor. So this is an inverted position, what we call an inverted position, because you have less pressure on the pelvic floor. And as you breathe out, you can try and gauge your pelvic floor in this position. And then as you breathe in, feel them relaxing even more. And if you want to try another inverted position, I'm also just giving ideas for people that have a yoga practice or an exercise practice, that it's really worthwhile spending time exploring how your pelvic floor are in different positions. How in some positions they're more able to contract more easily, and in others they're more able to relax more easily. In some positions it's much easier to relax your buttock muscles or your inner thigh, and we're all different slightly. So another one, if you do downward dog, you could go into the downward dog position. And try doing the exercises in this position. Another position, if your pelvic floor is a little bit weak, which takes some pressure off, or if it's tight and you want to focus on relaxing it, is to have your legs up against the wall. And then you can do the exercises in this position. So you can do pelvic floor just when you're standing. Standing at a bus stop, waiting for someone, just standing. It's what they're designed to do, to give support to our basic core posture. If you want to work them a bit more, this is building up into the squat. This is quite a strong one. You come into what I call the standing squat. So open your feet out a bit, sink into your knees, so you need your knees to be okay, and then you can do your pelvic floor in this standing squat position. So the strongest position for the pelvic floor is squatting, and of course I'm aware that a lot of people aren't comfortable squatting, and of course if you have weakness in the pelvic floor, this is going to be too strong. But that's also, we have to remember that in traditional cultures people would just squat to sit, to have a chat, also to eliminate. They didn't have sitting toilets, they'd squat to eat, to give birth. And it's actually a really good position to work your pelvic floor muscles, as long as you're comfortable, as long as you don't have weakness, but also not only weakness in the pelvic floor, perhaps weakness around the pubic bone, weakness in your sacroiliac joint. you're not comfortable, you have restrictions in your knees and ankles. It's a position, maybe I'll do a whole video on squatting, because it's a really good position to build up to. But if you're okay squatting, doing pelvic floor exercise in the squat is really, really good. So in the squat, you can't engage your inner thigh, your glutes are really nicely lengthened, and then you can focus on the out breath, drawing the muscles up, even up to your head. So explore all the different types of pelvic floor exercises in these different positions. And on the in-breath, you can really feel the relaxation because you've got the weight bearing down. So this is the one ultimately to build up to if you can. Don't start with this one, and only do it if you're really comfortable and you don't have any issues. So I hope this video has given you lots of ideas of how you can work with your pelvic floor muscles in lots of different positions. So play around with them in the different positions. Standing, you could try dancing and moving, a bit like I did on the ball. Experiment and get to know and hopefully love your pelvic floor and see them as an essential part of who you are and how you express yourself. Thank you.